new staff.
Sorry, everybody, I forgot to hit record.
It's okay. We're in the process of hiring new staff due to retirements, resignation, and then, of course, the new positions that were approved by the voters in Thompson, which are the transition special education teacher and the half-time tech educator. So we're in the process of interviewing. We will be interviewing for the new principal at Turtle Out Memorial Hospital, High School on July 26th. We are looking forward to getting a new leader for that school. The roof and window projects are well underway and on time. The security gate construction has started this week. However, there are delays in steel delivery, which is impacting the gate arms. So if you don't see the gate arms up, it's really because there's a delay and I guess a shortage on steel. The grant projects under the Alliance Construction Grant, the dust collectors are being installed in the manufacturing program, and the new telephone system, which is a big project, is being installed district-wide. The American Rescue Plan application for the for the Board of Education has been submitted to the Department of Education. Almost 90% of the money of those funds are to mitigate learning loss. And then the other 10% is being focused on an assessment of our HVAC system. One of the things that are being required by the federal government is they really want you to take a look at your ventilation system and make sure that that is operating properly. So at the end, we'll end up with a report. So I'm waiting for approval of that grant proposal from the state. And once that happens, we're going to get moving on those projects. And that's about all I have to report this month.
Any questions for the superintendent? Questions for the superintendent? All right, thank you, Melinda. I got a text message from Orla a few minutes ago, or at least I think it was a few minutes ago, saying that she would be on shortly. She said be on in 5. So she's not here now. So I guess what we could do is skip over down to Turtle Up Fund update, although I think she's the one that usually provides us with info on that. Well, I guess we could keep going if you go down to new business and then come back to her later when she's on. The first item under new business is Board of Finance meeting format for the remainder of 2021, in-person, remote, or hybrid. I mean, we've obviously been meeting remotely since March of 2020. And I guess the question is, how do we do this going forward? My understanding is municipal meetings may continue to operate in Zoom per the governor's order for some time in the future. Maybe Amy knows the timeline on that.
Timeline goes until next April, I believe it was, off the top of my head. April 2022. We do have a hybrid format that is available if we met in the Merrill Sine room. So that would mean even board members could technically still Zoom in. Public could meet in person, board could still meet in person for the majority. Yeah.
And so does that mean the options are exclusively Zoom, hybrid, or exclusively in person?
Correct.
Interesting. Go ahead, Rhonda.
It's up to the board.
Yeah, I have a question. So let's say hypothetically that the entire board decides to meet in person. Would there then still be a hybrid meeting, or would it just be an in-person meeting at that point?
You could still, if the whole entire board met in person, you could still do hybrid to allow people to Zoom in. That would be, honestly, if I had my input, I would like to see every board and commission meet in person, but still allow the public to Zoom in, because I think it's a greater opportunity for some of our elderly folks. I've heard things from some of our elderly, older population where they're happy Zooming in because they can be in the comfort of their home and still know what's going on in the community without having to drive to a meeting. But it still gives flexibility. So if you're someplace and you can't actually get to the town hall in time, you could still Zoom in.
Meaning a
That
member
makes
could.
sense.
Meaning a member could.
A member could,
Yeah.
correct.
Melinda, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that the members of the Board of Education voted to have a hybrid, so they meet in person, and then they're also having the Zoom option for anyone who wants to Zoom in. So just to let you know, that's the direction they're taking.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rob.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with Melinda and what the Board of Ed's done and Amy's comments. I also like, while I would encourage us to meet in person, it also gives us an opportunity to not miss a meeting if we're out of town or, outside of the pandemic, just things happen in life. And by having the hybrid, I'd like to make as many in person, but if I'm out of town and I can call in remotely, then I don't have to miss a meeting. So I think that gives us all the maximum flexibility. Folks that are concerned about COVID today, and there's many that are, some that aren't, but there's many that are, they can call in and still participate in the town's business without having to be in person. Those are my comments.
Go ahead, Steve.
I guess I'm one of those elderly people. The hybrid is a great opportunity for us. I have difficulty walking, so for me, that would be great. I'd like to make it physically because I'm a member of the board, but I know there's many who find that a little difficult, or would be a lot easier to be able to do it by a hybrid type of meeting. I really would endorse that approach.
I have to agree. I like the hybrid myself. I think it's a great idea. I personally will be at the meetings in person. And I only have a few left, but I think it's a great option. And I think a lot of people that haven't been able to make the meetings, they could be at the meeting if they're in their car, as a passenger. So I think you'll get a lot more people attending the meetings that want, or at least it's simple for them to do so. So they can't really, have any reason not to attend. So I think it's great to do it that way, my opinion.
And I agree. Do we even need to do a vote on this, or do we, because that's more of like an agenda item, right? Maybe not, maybe it's not an agenda item. I just wonder if, when we put our agenda together, do we just say Thursday, 7 p.m. In person in the Merrill Cine room of the town hall, along with Zoom, hybrid, whatever. I just wonder if we need to vote on it.
Maybe, I don't know. I think maybe.
Did the Board of Ed vote on it? Not that we have to do exactly what they do, but consistency. The Board of Ed voted on it, Aaron, it looks like.
Go ahead,
I don't
Steve.
think a vote hurts personally.
Yeah, I would agree. A vote would be, I think, helpful. Go on
Okay,
record as to how we feel.
that's fine. So then I'll entertain a motion to, from this point forward, all of our regular and special meetings will be hybrid, meaning Board of Finance members will be encouraged to attend in person, and members of the community have the option of either attending in person or via Zoom. And if a Board of Finance member is unable to attend in person, that person could still attend by Zoom if they're available during that time. I know that was a big, long sentence, but I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
Oh, I thought that was the motion.
No. If somebody, okay, I'll make that motion. I'll make that motion.
I'll
If somebody want a
second it.
second.
I'll second it.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, Rhonda.
No, it's okay.
So motion made. So I've made the motion and Steve has made the second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right. So this passes 4-0. Hybrid. And so that means we'll be meeting in the Merrill Cine room in the town hall. Great. Amy, thank you. Go ahead, Rhonda.
I think that's great. That's awesome in the Merrill
Yeah.
City. Perfect.
I guess in an ideal world, it'd be kind of nice if, when all this pandemic is really completely completely in the rearview mirror, if we can keep Zoom, meaning if we can all meet in person, but continue to offer Zoom to members of our community. That would be, I guess it'd be a nice leftover from the pandemic, wouldn't it?
I think
it's
so.
one
I
of the
don't,
good
I don't see why we wouldn't want to do that, to be honest with you.
Go ahead, Steve.
One of the good lessons I think we've learned from the pandemic, if there's any good lesson at all.
Right. All right, so the next item under in new business is the discussion about the American Rescue Plan funds. I know that may take a little while, so I noticed that Orla was able to connect. So maybe what we should do is jump back to financial report. Technically, that means that we're jumping from one location of the meeting to the other, and we should, by Robert's rules, technically we should vote on that. So I'll make a motion that we leave section 9B and we go back up to section 7. I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
And Steve's got the second. All in favor of leaving 9B and going back up to item 7 on the agenda, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? This one carries 4-0. So now we're back on item 7, financial report. Orla, welcome.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. Sorry for the delay. I had to go somewhere on the way home from work. Okay, so we have provisional reports. This is the earliest we could actually hold July meeting today. This is the earliest day, so it's kind of, we've been cramming to try and get a decent report out to you guys. Hence, I held off sending it to you until this morning. So we are at 17.422 in property taxes. So of that, we're about $250,000 lower than what we had budgeted. There's a couple of reasons for that. I actually had a brief conversation with Rainey before I left the office earlier on. So he did want to bring to the attention, he's not in the meeting, but he did want me to bring to your attention specific transactions that affected that number. The DMV, it looks like based on the delay with the DMV with regards to getting opening and updating their numbers, we lost out on approximately $62,000 of motor vehicle supplement. We're going to see it coming in fiscal 22. Also, there was 2 payments that he was hoping to get before year end, but he didn't get them. One of them was the nutmeg, which is formerly Narampak. They've been in discussion with the state and they're claiming an exemption. It's in dispute. We probably will see some of it during fiscal 22 and fiscal 23. At least that's what Paul had mentioned the last time we talked about it. Obviously, with the closing of Superior Bakery, we missed out on the second half of their taxes, their personal property taxes, which approximately was about $25,000. So overall, that was down to about $150,000 of that $250,000 that we didn't get in, that we would certainly budgeted for at the beginning of the year. On a more positive note, he did also want me to let you know that they did collect in the first week of July an outstanding tax relating to a home on Thompson Hill that he's been waiting for. The home was up for sale, it's in contract, and he was able to get $61,000 from the attorney first week of July. So that was a plus. So that goes into fiscal 22. But back to my report. So the current tax is 16.56. We were $287,000 higher than this time last year. Prior taxes are higher also, as are interest and liens. But as we've noted already, the motor vehicle supplement is less. So we're $58,000 less than we were this time last year for that line. And as I say, we would have had at least $62,000 extra should things have gone according to plan. On the state and federal grants, so OPM closes out its year. They tend to get a couple of things into us before the end of the year, and they did get the last 1/3 of the Pequot Indian grant, which is just over $12,000. And we also got our federal pilot payment in lieu of taxes, which is approximately $5,000. On the local revenue, we came in at 1.207, higher by 316. We know that $225,000 of that is the Turtle Rock Trust, but we did have also declines in interest, investment interest, fuel reimbursement, preschool tuition, and also magnet school, which was a small dollar amount, but it was substantially less than what we had budgeted. Increases were and continued through the end of the year to be town clerk, permits, conveyance, building fees, anything related to construction or home ownership was going crazy. And we also brought in more money on transport station permits. Expenses 7.39, that's where we are committed at the moment. Cash decreased by 1.6 based on last year. During the month of May is when we got the money in for the closing of the school roof. So that's why we're showing a lot of money at the end of May, but we've spent a lot during the month of June. But we are higher this time compared to this time last year by 4.8 million. And that's obviously down to collections. Collection month has been busy. First week was crazy for the tax office. Things were a little bit quieter this year, but it's going to continue steady until the end of the month. No changes to surplus. So if you want to go to the income, I did, in addition to where we are with regards to monies collected and monies spent, we did take a look at where we were and where we anticipate going to be, because as I say, it's pretty early in our year-end process at this stage. We're only 2 weeks in. Usually we'll keep the books open until at least the end of July. But revenue, we are anticipated to get some some fuel reimbursement revenue. I got some numbers from Rich's Secretary Kelly today, approximately $5,600 that we will get in within the next week or so. And we'll include that as a monies that we should have got in by the end of December. On the expenses side of things, let's go to page 4. Okay, so as I say, we've committed 7.39, but based on what we're looking at as bills versus purchase orders that are already in the system, we look like we're going to come in at approximately 7.56 of overall expenditures. So based on that, and based on what I see as the Board of Ed, based on their budget number, I'm not sure where they are, whether they're going to have a surplus or not, but I based it on the estimates that they were going to have, that they were going to spend all their budget. That leaves us with a surplus requirement of approximately $139,000. So we budgeted 284. We brought in some revenues, but we were able to cut down on expenses on the town side. So although my original estimation, I think it was for both the May and the June close, was going to be approximately $100,000 of that required to use, it looks like it's going to be closer to 140. And that really comes down to some of the revenue items that did not come in. So let me just take a look and see if there's anything substantial on the balance sheet. Nothing major. We're still making so many adjustments here and there. No, nothing substantial. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions? Questions?
So a couple of other things to note that is going on. So we had our audit during the month of June. King and Associates came in to both the school and the Board of Ed the last few days of June. Things went pretty smoothly. You know, it's early days. It's just preliminary stuff, but it's nice to be able to get them in earlier. So it makes life a little bit easier when they come back in September. Now I know Rob had asked me to look into some information with regards to what we were planning for the fixed assets. We have not ventured down that road yet. That's really something that I end up doing at the end of the year, and we still have so many bills left to pay. But I have created some spreadsheets that we're going to review over the next few weeks with each of the department heads regarding some of the equipment that had been brought up in the previous year's audit. So we'll be disposing as needed. And it's not really necessarily a process. It's just more of about regulating it on an annual basis and keeping an eye. Once we do the massive clear out this year, we're going to start pretty fresh, and we'll be able to regulate it as needs be as we dispose of. I'll probably set up, with regards to trying to set up a system, definitely set up a different communication channel with Rich with regards to notification when he decides to scrap a piece of equipment or decides to scrap a vehicle. Usually we know when they're being sold because they're usually traded in against newer vehicles. So with regards to the scrap side of things, I haven't typically requested that information from them in the past. Does that answer your question, Rob, for the moment at least?
It partially does, Orla. My recollection of the last audit was that there was some concern over the controls around assets. So I recognize that you don't have it ready now on July 15th for last year, and that wasn't my request. It's really, did we tighten up the belt and suspenders around governance, and do we have an accurate asset list? So if we're audited and somebody walked into one of the departments, would the asset list reflect what's actually physical assets in that department? And then B, around the disposal, we should be tight on it, because it's an area, you know, it's a risk for the town. It's an area on the audit that's going to come up again. And I think it's something that you should probably own, but the department heads should own. You should own the overall, driving of it, but each department head could take that list and, take the things off the list that were sold 5 years ago. Let's clean it up. It takes some time. It's a project. And then once it's cleaned, the process or the procedures around keeping it clean. And that would be each year, once it's cleaned up, then each year you could, do the puts and takes on what sold and what entered. That's kind of where I was at, Orla. I just think we should button that up, and it should be a project so that on future audits, we're really clean on it.
Yeah, I agree. It's always way down the priority list because it's really only for the audit report. There's nothing that's
Well,
processed on a monthly basis,
no.
but it is crucial at the same time. It's still part of the process. So it should.
Sorry, Orla, I don't view it as just for the audit. I mean, I get that it's important for the audit, but the audit's highlighting the weaknesses, and it's an area that we're vulnerable, and it could be a significant amount of money, and we should manage that tightly. If we were a private entity, I can tell you that would be managed squeaky clean, and we should take that same viewpoint as a municipality, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost this. One of the challenges that I encounter being from both sides of the world of private and public sector is you're right. But we try to be a cash basis on a monthly basis, and then all of a sudden at the end of the year we become modified accrual. So it's we don't record depreciation as such in our expenses. It's not part of our budget. So it becomes a little bit, but yeah, it's on my radar. It's on our process for year end, and as I get to the stage where I can give at least a clean start for July 1 or at least June 30th. 2021, I'll send it out to you guys so you can take a look and see where we are and see how it affects our bottom line.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, anybody? So we're not going to be meeting in August, but I will send you a report of how July how July ends. But you can imagine there's a lot of cash coming in right now, so it's we're cash steady right now.
Any other questions for the finance director under item 7, financial report? Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to Turtle Out Fund update. I don't know if, Orla, if you have any
We have not met.
20-second or less summary, or no summary at all. That's okay.
No summary. Window projects is on. Window project phase 2 is ongoing. I think that's about it. Unless Melinda, do you have any update on the project, or just that it's ongoing?
Nope. I think you're muted, Melinda.
Can you hear me now? The window project is on track. I know Bill Birch is pleased with the process. So I don't think there's any hiccups along the way with that program.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Aaron, could I add a comment as a board member to the Turtle Out Trust? For those who haven't taken a loop up by the school, the next time you drive down there, I would encourage everyone to take a loop up and look at the building. I was there a few days ago with Amy, and it is, I know there's more to do, Melinda, so I'm not indicating it's done, but it's a beautiful building, and those windows are phenomenal. I mean, it's an amazing piece of architecture that we have in our town, and I just encourage everyone to just take a quick loop up the hill and look at it, because it's pretty awesome what's happening both outside and inside that building.
Nice. Thank you. Anything else under Turtle Out Fund update? Anything else? All right, hearing none, we'll move back down to new business, and we'll bump back down to new business section B, discussion with, well, it says discussion with Board of Selectmen. Obviously, the first selectman is the one who's leading the charge here about the American Rescue Plan funds, guidelines, and potential uses. And I see someone just joined us with a 508 area code. So I don't know if that's Tira.
Should be Tara.
Yeah, I just unmuted myself. Were you asking if that was I? Yes.
Yep, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I believe Amy is about to do a share screen and put the report up so that we can take a look at it.
Yeah. So
Okay, just I'm on a phone only, guys, so I can't see anything. Just so you know.
Fortunately, you know this report better than anybody because you created it. So we'll just let you know where we are, and I'm sure you'll be able to speak to it.
All right, great. Thank you.
So Tira, as was stated, Tira did create a pretty detailed report for us, a very detailed report outlining what items might be eligible under the American Rescue Plan. So I'll just start with a brief summary. It has been confirmed that Thompson is going to be receiving $2,775,720. So 2.7 million, let's just say, in funds. It's absolutely a windfall for the town in many ways. Hopefully we can really determine how to best use the funds. But based on the guidelines that are given to us by the US Treasury, these were the items that we identified as being potential uses for the funds. And they're in no particular order. I'll just I know this was shared with the Board of Finance, but for the sake of any of the community members that might be in the meeting that weren't privy to this report, I'm just gonna kind of go through quickly. So the first would be COVID mitigation and prevention in particular. They also include capital investments in public facilities to meet pandemic operational needs, such as physical plant improvements to public hospitals and health clinics, or adaptations to public buildings to implement COVID-19 mitigation tactics. In this section, again, I'm just being really brief with my overview. In this section, we've identified possible renovation of the community firehouse. I feel like the firehouse itself might be a stretch, but what is housed in that fire department is the ambulance service. As we know, the EMTs and paramedics, we don't have paramedics in Thompson, but the EMTs were first responders. They were out when COVID was at its height and they were answering calls. And right now they are displaced. So that is a major immediate need within the community. Additionally, our emergency managed director, Steve Benoit, had identified the need for a possible emergency shelter. So what we're really looking at in this proposed eligible project could potentially be public safety facility of some sort. But again, I don't believe we have determined cost. Oh, it looks like rough estimate would be 1.7 million. Contrasting estimate to construct an entirely new 18,000 square foot station housing both services could be 7.2 million. So again, this is just one of the options. I don't want to go into too much detail because you've all received this report. Scrolling down, assistance to households. This could be food assistance, rent, mortgage, or utility assistance. So that's one of the options. The proposed eligible project could be qualifying households may apply for direct assistance for one or more of the identified eligible items above. Of particular interest from a community revitalization perspective would be providing assistance to homeowners to make needed repairs or upgrades. Again, that's just an option. It's something that's in the guidelines, and I'm not swayed either way with any of these. I just, again, giving you a quick overview. And then we'll move into questions and answers.
I was going to say, Amy, at the risk of being redundant, like if you were to add up the cost of all these different things, it would far exceed the amount of money that we have available. This is just, you could do this, you could do that, you could do the other. And then at some point decisions will be made to sort of, picking one or two or three, depending on how much the one or two or three projects cost. It's obviously a function of how much money we have to spend, but just deciding what the priorities are and then picking them and going with them.
Right, correct. Would you like me to continue?
Oh, sure. I just want, it was more like,
Yep.
I know at the risk of being redundant, I just figured I would just say it for the record that this doesn't mean that these are all the projects. This just means these are the possibilities.
These are the possibilities, and I believe the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance will be charged with making the decision after we receive some community input at some point.
Got it.
Is my thought, but I hesitate, or I strongly urge us to be quick, because all towns are receiving these sums of money, And if it's a major project, we want to be able to make sure that we can secure engineering and supplies and construction contractors and construction material, because everybody's receiving these funds. So we don't want to make too much haste in making our final decisions is my thought. So aid to impacted industries in this section, and you can read it in more detail. We identified improvements to the Airline State Park Trail. Obviously during COVID, the airline trail had increased usage. There are sections of the trail that are in need of repair, and our Public Works Department has not been able to get out there and make those repairs because they're on various construction projects. There's also the proposal for the train wreck park, which could also play a part in tourism, which has also been identified within the guidelines of the US Treasury. So tourism to this area and building back tourism, obviously that industry was affected greatly during COVID, and building that back is certainly a priority for the use of these funds. Going down again, I'm just doing
Amy, would you mind just looking at the score sheet? Just any one of them, doesn't really matter. And just to help me understand what I tried to do this for these projects, and I didn't understand this well enough to follow. By the way, a lot of work obviously in this report, and I appreciate all the effort that has already gone into this. That's really great. But I mean, if you wouldn't mind going down these and help me understand what these mean. Some of them are
Yeah,
clear,
I should
but some of them are
probably,
not so much.
go
say,
over the
Tara created the
score
score
sheet.
sheet, so yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead, Tara.
so we're just going to create some way to standardize responses, and obviously there's subjectivity to it, no matter, because each person reviewing is going to be reviewing it individually with their own perspective.
Of course.
But just trying to pull out the elements on which you would want to score these projects. So, for example, clarity and eligibility, I would say every one of these proposed projects is eligible. The critical clarity of eligibility varies from project to project. There are some things in the Treasury's interim final rule, which is so that some have some gray areas. So in terms of justifying the use of the funds, because there will be reporting, so that you need. Some of these things obviously have a more immediate impact or are in response to more recent impacts than others. Some of them are more long-ranging. Them as close to objective criteria as I could. And if you go through each of the projects, it'll have and the best we can do for estimated numbers.
If I could ask maybe a specific question, one of the items is called estimated project cost. And you can rank it 1 through 7, I think. Does that mean that the more it costs, the higher the score is? Or the other way around, the cheaper it is, I guess?
I think we've lost Tara.
Get more points for having a lower price ticket, because that potentially frees us up to do more with the funds by spreading it to other projects. And I could edit this score sheet. I haven't personally.
I don't know if you can hear me, but you're breaking up.
Aaron, can I jump in?
Tara, you've been breaking up pretty badly.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm outside on my phone in Massachusetts, so I'm doing my best. Hopefully you'll get me back.
Yeah, you sound a little clearer now. Did you move a few feet to the left?
I moved.
Okay, because you're clear now.
Okay, all right. I'll stay where I am then.
We were talking about the scoring logarithm or the scoring. The philosophy that went into the scoring sheets at the end of each project.
Right. So just in response to Steve's specific question, yes, I had it flipped so that for example, on the estimated project cost, the lower the cost of the project, the higher it would score, because then that opens up the potential to be able to address more than one project. And that's just a straight or something very close to a straight 1 through 7. Same thing with estimated numbers of households served. Now, you could interpret some of those things with a little wiggle room, so maybe it's not a straight 1 through 7, but it was as close to a set of objective criteria as I could come up with. And I have no objection to trying to amend this score sheet to a different format based on feedback. I haven't myself come up with a better set of options, but there's always room to tweak before we make final choices, right?
If I might ask, then this is what you've developed. This is not a government, federal ranking system. It's what you were able to pull together. Does I understand it correctly?
That is correct. There
Okay,
is,
thank
at least as of the time I compiled this report,
Okay.
there is no score sheet available from the, with federal guidance like that.
All right, thank you. Good.
It's an attempt to create objective decision-making process,
Right.
or as objective as possible. That's why I noticed that each one of these score sheets, they all look the same. And then I realized, oh, okay, got it. This is for each person individually, or at least each decision maker. I don't know, Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, or whatever, to go through and based on what they observe about each project, to think about what score they would give to each of these criteria, and then come up with their whatever recommendation they think we would go with.
Right, and that gives the group of decision makers, the boards of finance, selectmen, and the department directors who are involved in the final process, a basis of comparison based on, priorities that we identify. Right now, you'll notice that the last question, number 10, project has public support to be answered following the public engagement process. There is a call in the Treasury document to have a public engagement process. It is not in any way prescribed what form that takes. So, that is allowing some kind of community weight to go in this. And I think one of the things we need to discuss is what form that community engagement piece does take to make it meaningful.
If I could back up, one of the items is project already has substantial background work completed. What were you aiming for in that item?
Well, if there is a project that somebody's already put a lot of work into, just to go back to community fire, we already know that there were concept drawings made. They're included in one of the appendices. We know that Provost and Rivera worked up some initial estimates. Now, those estimates are 2 years old, but they've still been done. They can be updated. So, anything that's had that kind of substantial background work, you're already a couple of steps ahead.
Gotcha. Again, I just wanted to get an understanding what you were aiming at there. That explains it. Thank you.
Yep.
You've helped a lot in terms of me trying to understand this, or understanding this score sheet. And I think it's a great idea. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and by all means, guys, I mean, everybody and anybody who's on this meeting who isn't, on any of the boards, if anybody has any questions about this, I am perfectly happy to take questions via email or phone on this. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here. I think about this stuff day in, day out, right? It's part of my actual day job. But for other people, they're intersecting with these projects in a much, briefer fashion. And now they are all being pushed to the forward for consideration. So yeah, I'm always happy to take those questions.
Sorry, Amy. I don't even remember which project you were briskly walking us through. I don't know if it was 3 or 4 or what.
You're headed into 4. I actually have a copy of the document in front of me.
Thanks, Tara. So yeah, moving into 4 would be building stronger communities through investments in housing and neighborhoods. So obviously the 65 Main Street project, stands out with this because it is about economic development. So that's one of the options. Sorry, I got lost there just because.
My fault. I apologize.
No, that's okay. No, your question was really important. The fifth item would be promoting healthy childhood environments, new expanded high quality childcare. We talked about some after school programs. Obviously, a lot of our children who had to Zoom in or into their classrooms, do virtual classrooms, might be falling behind a little bit. So this was an option in order to promote our kids and giving them something to do after school that might help them educationally with tutoring and homework help. I thought this was a fantastic way of really connecting with our kids and helping them all succeed. Let's see, 6, water and sewer infrastructure. This was very clear in the ARPA guidelines. In this particular case, we're talking about the salt storage facility. The interim final rule does this by aligning eligible uses of the fiscal recovery funds with the wide range of types and categories and projects that are eligible to receive financial assistance through Environmental Protection Agency's Clean Water State Revolving Fund. And what it's looking to do is potentially protect water bodies from pollution. You can see that right here. And obviously we've been talking about the salt storage facility for a few years. So this certainly screams out that it might be a smart project for us to undertake.
Amy, could I
Again,
just interrupt for a quick second on this one? I read this and it says that the salt levels, the sodium levels are climbing in some of the groundwater, but I thought we just had a study that said the opposite, that it was declining. Did I get that wrong?
You did kind of get that wrong, because what the
Okay.
study actually said was that there was no evidence that it was rising.
Okay, all right.
Chris, Connecticut
Yes,
Water.
Steve, that's also included in the appendices, both the executive summary of the One Earth Environmental Report and the 2 pages of conclusions and recommendations. So that is included in there for that very clarity.
No, but I think we had another report that was done, correct me if I'm wrong, probably wrong again, from another consultant a little while ago.
Are you talking about Wayne
I think
Bogdan
that's
back
the
in
one we're
January?
talking about.
Oh,
Right.
okay. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was One Earth. I didn't realize that was the name of it. Okay, sorry.
Right, One Earth Environmental, Wayne Bogdan.
That's what I was thinking about. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we're moving forward with additional test sites with him so we can do additional studies. There wasn't clear enough data for him to really render a full decision, but on the basis of his initial investigation, it did not show that the levels were rising. Thankfully, because our new DPW director had made some modifications to how they move the salt around the facility.
Right.
But it's certainly something that we want to make sure that we stay on top of, and we do not pollute the water source, which is just hundreds of meters away from where the salt is currently stored.
Thank you.
So it's just an option. Again,
Right,
just
sure.
another option. This next one, number 7, was water and sewer infrastructure. Our water treatment plant is probably older than me or pretty close to it. It has only had they've had reactive repairs versus proactive repairs. Most of the equipment is very much original. There's something to be said for the way things were made 40 some odd years ago. However, this is an eligible use. This is very clear. There's no gray area with this. So upgrading our sewer facility could potentially, we could really do a full complete upgrade. I had asked Roland Demers to give us some quotes on that. And he estimated $750,000 to upgrade the entire facility. So that's very clear in the guidelines. Yeah. Tara, was there anything else you thought you wanted to share besides these appendices or anything else you wanted to share about things?
Yeah, I want to call attention to something that we didn't include that we did discuss, which was broadband, which is another thing that is very, very clearly and explicitly eligible. After Amy and Orla and Renee and I had a meeting to discuss it, we tried to do a little background work into ballpark costs they seemed like they would be prohibitive to bring any kind of genuinely meaningful broadband upgrades to Thompson. And the other thing is, it was the piece that was the most poorly understood by all of us. So with all of these other options that we had a better handle on in the final iteration, I did not include that. I do want to say that it is possible to explore that, but it would take a lot of background work. So, you know, that's really where we are. And, you know, I've read through that interim final rule, I don't know, at this point, probably a half a dozen times at least. My views of the relative eligibility haven't really changed on this. My observation that there are gray areas also hasn't changed. Now, just yesterday, we did get an email from the executive director of Connecticut Main Streets and one of the land use or planning folks from CCM, talking about forming a task force to sort of explore eligible projects. And I sent them a copy of this for feedback. So, and I know Patrick McMahon, the executive director of Connecticut Main Streets, he's a nice guy. He said he thought he could turn it back in a couple few days. So, you know, if any of their feedback changes any of these estimations, I will keep working on this. As I get more information, I can keep adding to this. Whatever final version of it we look at, I just think we should just sort of set a timetable for consideration, group consideration, and then a timetable for whatever public engagement piece that is, what form that would take, how we want to approach that. There is obviously some urgency to it. As Amy points out, everybody and their uncle is getting these same funds. It's the same group of engineers and construction firms are going to be bidding on everything within the state of Connecticut. But we also have 3 years to expend them. So, you know, we don't need to make choices rashly, but it would be prudent to make decisions firmly and as quickly as is reasonably possible, while still feeling thorough about the process. So that's really it.
Just another sort of technical question, because I think one of the criteria was what share of the population it serves, what share of the town is particular project serve. How many people, what's the share of the population, or how many people are served by the water treatment facility? And similarly,
roughly
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's roughly a third, and I
Okay.
happened to know that because of my work on the POCD. It's about 1,200 parcels within Thompson, so that's parcels that would be currently affected, and some of those effects would be, you know, with higher efficiency, possibly water rates would go down. Obviously, the facility itself would be less costly to run after an upgrade. But another thing to consider is that if the capacity is increased, you know, the efficiency of the facility is increased, you could potentially get more connectivity, pursue more connectivity. So, you know, some of the percentages are, well, all of the percentages really are ballparked at best. I used the best matrix that was available to me to try to determine, but none of those numbers are hard and fast, with the possible exception of community fire, in that we know that, for example, the EMS serves the whole town. Right.
Right, and
we have
it
one
was interesting.
facility.
I didn't realize community served half the population. That was a fact I never was aware of. I thought they were, you know, 1 out of 5.
Yeah, by
Good to know.
population density,
Yeah.
it's roughly 50%. Yeah.
Again, thank you. That was just sort of a technical question I wanted to ask. Thank you.
I had a question, Aaron, if I could.
Go ahead.
First up, Tara, the criteria is that's an excellent way to do it. You're trying to quantify and take kind of take a little bit of the gut feel away from it and put numbers to it. I think I would encourage us to maybe think about fewer criteria, only because with so much criteria, they're all important, but they become diluted, right, when you have too many. So I think there's a good set there. What are the most important, and then weigh those more heavily, right? So it could help.
Right.
guide.
Well, I think, Rob, that's what the score sheets allow us to do, is to narrow down maybe. So, and I'm just spitballing this, right? So let's say that the two boards and the directors do an initial round of scoring and are maybe coming up with the top 3 or 4 out of those 7 based on what we identify, you know, from consensus. Then that does narrow down. I don't think it's probably too wise to go fully to the public engagement process until we've done some narrowing down. You know, because most people in their day-to-day lives, they just aren't thinking about these things. So if you're asking them to think about all of these things at once, yes, it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
So if we, as sort of the people who have chosen the responsibility, do that narrowing, but still do it based on, you know, trying to use these matrix or some other form of it, then I think that's responsive to. It just makes it less random. You know me, Rob. I don't like random, right? I want it to be. We decide, and we could find surprises out in our scoring as well, which I think we should be open to.
Yes, so no issue with the narrowing it down. I think that's appropriate. We don't want to, you know, as they say, boil the ocean with 20 projects and try to get people's input. We should try to narrow it down. I was suggesting just that the criteria maybe be narrowed down so that what's most important could be more heavily weighted. It's a great chart, but when you have 10 or 12 items, the most you can rank something is like 15 or 20. That was my only point. Is that I think I'd relook at that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there might be like 3 things that are really important, and then, you know, give 150, 140, 110, or however you want to split it, and that would help. I think it would just help guide us. But my real question, what I was really driving to was the question of, are we able to use the funds to partially fund projects that we may want to do? So, for example, rather than picking, say, 2 projects and spending all the 2.7 on both projects, could we pick 4 projects and it fund a portion of those projects? So on one project, maybe we say, let's fund the whole thing. But on another one, we might say, we're contemplating, and I'm making this up, right? We were contemplating a salt shed, didn't want to spend $750,000 or couldn't afford it, but maybe we'd kick in 150 in our next budget cycle. And I'm just asking the question,
Yes.
Is there flexibility to do that? Because then we might be able to touch more, projects and more people.
Yeah, I think that's totally feasible. And in fact, the 4 of us on staff did discuss that as a possibility. I mean, there's a certain appeal, right, to picking a project or 2 projects and funding them fully. But there is, as you say, also an appeal to having a lot of things getting started that otherwise couldn't. I think the key to the latter approach is that it has to be mapped out how you get to the end point, right? Because for example, I am reasonably confident after a discussion with my contact at USDA that these funds are probably eligible to be used as match funds against USDA rural development grants. I am not 100% on that, but based on my conversation with her, I would say that is a strong possibility. Also, we know that there are some capital funds socked away for some projects. So once you apply those and take, you know, you get closer to done without necessarily having to use the whole nut on one thing. Obviously, there's some smaller things in there, like the child care and recreation department proposal. In terms of the overall nut, it's chump change, right? I think I proposed a probable top end expenditure of $200,000 over 3 years in comparison to the $2.75 million. If that's one of the things we choose, yeah, spend the whole nut, you got it. And you've still got plenty, right?
Right.
To your question, with yes, that's possible.
Okay, thank you. I had a couple of more comments, Aaron, if it's appropriate now to jump into them.
By all means, go ahead, Rob.
One is just kind of a comment around fire. And I think, you know, we absolutely need to do something there. I think we've talked about this on a number of occasions. We have 1 of 5 units that supports 50% of the town, I just heard, and it gets 20% of the allocation. I've never been a proponent of of what they call the peanut butter theory, where you just spread everything out, right? It's best to put the funding where it's needed most. So I guess just speaking from my own input to the group, I would be more supportive or feel better about a fire type project if we had a more holistic strategy around what we want to do as a town. That's not to pull away from any one individual fire department, but lacking a more comprehensive strategy, I've got a hard time kind of getting around, looking at one. Emergency services, that might be different, but certainly from the fire, I think it might be an opportunity to be more thoughtful and holistic about what we do. The two other items that come to mind for me, one is also thinking about things that have a minimal to no ongoing burden to the town. Or if it is going to have a burden to the town, we know about it and acknowledge it when we agree to do the project. So that's just something we just don't want to saddle ourselves with future costs because the money's here today, right? Because someone's got to pay for that in the future. So just I think we should be mindful of that. And then my last comment was, I think to the degree that we can benefit all or benefit as many as possible, I think that's going to garner more public support. I kind of tend to like projects that can touch as many of the townspeople as they can. And some of those projects do that were identified, but I think that would be another important criteria. That's it.
Thanks, Rob. Any other thoughts? Any thoughts, questions, comments? I noticed that Suzanne Wachowski put something in the chat. Will citizens be allowed to comment tonight? I guess I'm not opposed to that. I mean, technically it's Board of Finance just taking the first glance at this. Whereas my understanding is we are at some point between now and when projects are finally decided upon, there's going to be a public discussion, presentation, comment type of public hearing, I guess.
That would be the goal, to do some type of format where the public could speak, where, like Tara said, we narrow down to maybe 3, maybe 4, but to just a few versus the 7 that are up there.
I guess here, if I could make this judgment call, I'm happy to welcome Suzanne Wachowski's input because she's a member of the Board of Selectmen. And so she is part of the discussion / decision-making process that narrows this down to the projects that are going to be presented to the community when all members of the community have the opportunity to talk and think and share input. So Suzanne, by all means, if you have some thoughts to share, you're welcome.
I had just a question or two regarding the time frame, and I know that we talked that there's like up to 3 years and that kind of thing, but I know that we have a situation with our ambulance service right now not having a home, so I'm questioning that. That was kind of one thing, and I wanted to ask if we are limited to the projects that were presented tonight. I mean, if somebody else comes out with a fabulous idea,
right,
are we going to hold ourselves to the projects that were presented tonight?
I don't think there's any obligation to do that, Suzanne. I would say that you wouldn't want to hold the door for that indefinitely, right? Because even though we do have 3 years, as you point out, we also only have 3 years. And there is, not like our hair isn't on fire to spend all this money tomorrow, but the ability to start the decision-making process has some more urgency. But if you or any other person, takes a look at this summary or takes a look at the interim final rule, which is a dry read, believe me. Yeah, I mean, this was me reading it over and over and over again, looking at the criteria, trying to identify projects I already knew existed, that people had already done at least some work on, or in some cases, trying to identify something that would fit the criteria. For example, the one on childhood, early childcare, there was a letter written by a regional focus group that was looking at these funds that said they were recommending to municipalities across the eastern region to choose one or more of three categories, and that was the housing assistance, mental health assistance, and early child care. So of those three, I felt confident that I could summarize or have a summary posited for me by our now outgoing recreation director of what those would look like. We don't have in-house expertise in mental health care, so I left that one off. But if, for example, somebody brought something in and said, hey, I think we could propose this initiative as well, as long as there was enough there to hang your, really develop a project, yeah, why not? But again, it's just not something you want to have the door open for forever, that's all.
I just felt there could have been a different approach in determining what projects might be of value, and that's why I asked that question. With starting with the community input first. That's what just my thought process, and you did a lot of work on that, and I absolutely see that there's definitely a need for some of these projects here in town. And in reading the documentation, I got a great sense that the project should be centered around things that were affected by the pandemic. So that's why
there is definitely, yeah, there's definitely an emphasis in the language of the interim final rule that is around COVID. I mean, that is why these funds became available to us. We had a slight disadvantage in that although there was an early attempt to form a response and recovery committee at the beginning of the pandemic, it never really went anywhere. So we are not of the communities that had identified specific unmet needs on some of the matrices that were recommended. And, you know, that's nobody's fault. You know, we're a small municipality, the bandwidth to put that together, you know, just didn't gel or come together. That's fine. But we would be playing catch up on some of that stuff.
All right. Aaron, the other reason I asked about citizens' comments is I've actually gotten some texts from people that are here in the meeting that wanted to just have comment for a little bit.
Sorry.
Aaron, you muted.
Muted, Aaron.
Okay, am I unmuted now?
No. Oh, yes.
Okay, great. So you can hear me. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, and that's fine. So I see that Justin Young put a comment in the chat. It says, are these funds allowed to be dispersed to benefit privately incorporated entities, i.e. community fire company, as well as the rest of the fire departments in town, in Thompson? And I'm not an attorney and I have not read ARPA, so I don't know. But if one of the projects that's being considered is community fire, my understanding is all 5 of the fire companies are independent corporations. So again, I'm not an attorney. I don't know, but the fact that it's on the table means that Tira may have taken a look at the need. I know the technicality of whether or not something is incorporated when compared to the ability of a town to put out fires. I guess maybe I should shut up and let somebody else speak to the technicalities of this, but I would think if there's a will, there's a way. Not that any one of these projects has been decided upon tonight, but just to answer the question of, you know, what about a private entity, and would that create a legal snag? Like I said, I'll just shut up and let somebody else speak to that.
Yeah, without actually having the interim rule in front of me, and just knowing some of the things that I know about from having read it, and you are allowed to have a sub-grantee. So I think if there was a technicality in that regard, it would just be making, for example, community fire or the WPCA for that matter, which is also, I believe, sort of separate, you know, from town, serve the town, a sub-grantee, and that is absolutely allowable. Very similar to what happens with CDBG funds, community development block grants. And part of the reason I say that I'm confident about that is because in the section that identifies tourism, and they're talking about giving money directly to businesses. I mean, never mind not-for-profits that serve the town, assisting businesses in the tourism and hospitality industry that have had negative impacts. So I don't think that that would be a barrier.
Yeah, I think that answers the question. Thank you, Tara. And then Josh, I'm sorry, Josh, if I'm mispronouncing your last name, Cusack, requests being able to speak. Josh, that's fine. If you can unmute yourself, go ahead and join the conversation. Not sure if Josh is still there. All right. Well, when Josh is available, he can join us. Oh, here, it looks like he just unmuted himself. Josh, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me, Aaron?
Yep, go ahead.
Excellent, thank you. So I just want to kind of point out some situations that have arisen. I'm the administrator of community ambulance. I've been running the service since February of 2019, if I remember correctly, the ambulance service in the town of Thompson. The ambulance service is governed under state statute as to the town is ultimately responsible in providing an ambulance service to the town of Thompson. With that being said, we've been providing an unmatched service for a very low cost comparatively to other towns for a significant amount of time since then. We actually cover 100% of the town of Thompson for all 5 fire districts. Community Fire Company actually only covers 20% of the town of Thompson, which is the immediate borough of North Grosvenordale. And the ambulance obviously is, we do estimated about 700 to 800 calls a year of patient transports. We do on average more than 1,000 calls per year with the Thompson Speedway. So I just want to put some numbers out there as to what we actually do in regards. We have a great staff of about 20 to 30 people, as 20 to 30 EMTs and EMR professionals that provide an undedicated service to, or an indispensable service to the town of Thompson. Overall, the fire department does not have a first responder certificate, which is similar to that. All the other 4 departments in town they do have a first responder certificate. So they respond in our backup on the ambulance side, and they provide a first response aspect to, they respond out and they provide care until the ambulance arrives. Community Fire District does not legally have any type of first responder license. They only have the ambulance. So for instance, if a car or if a call went out on Market Lane, technically the ambulance is the only legal unit allowed to respond to that call or anybody associated with that ambulance. But the ambulance is a huge part of the infrastructure in the town of Thompson, being that it provides the immediate emergency medical service to the taxpayers that fund it essentially. So I just want to point the numbers out necessarily. It's not that Community Fire Company provides 25%. It's that Community Ambulance provides 100%, and Community Fire Company provides 20%.
Thanks, Josh. And I guess
Josh, we did identify that the ambulance service does serve 100% of the community. The 50% is 50% by population density, as the numbers were communicated to me, not by land mass area.
Got it. Thank you. And so I guess so. That's what's good about this discussion is it gives us the opportunity to run through possible projects, kind of pull the layer back on some of them. Obviously, this is not a deep and technical drill down, if you will, because it's just a board of people who are looking at a report without having had the opportunity to go really deep into these. But at least it gets the conversation going. and it may uncover some opportunities to clarify, like, you know, does community serve 50% of the people or 25% of the town area? I guess then it's for people to sort of decide what's the criteria. Is it land mass? Is it people? Whatever. And if there are any discrepancies between what something serves an initial impression and maybe some follow-up opportunities after this, then we can certainly do that. This just gets the conversation going. Now, the Board of Finance is not going to meet in August. So I guess we'll wait to hear from the first selectman in terms of what kind of progress we're making towards getting ready to narrow things down, or do we maybe prepare ourselves to have a special meeting at a certain time to just discuss this specific topic alone? I'm open to direction from the first selectman.
Erin, I think it would be important for us to plan a special meeting to drill down as two boards elected by the people to really talk about what the options are, what the benefits are, maybe entertain a new option or two, because obviously this list isn't completely inclusive. And yeah, and then just go from there. And then plan a public presentation of sorts pretty quickly after that, would be my thought.
Is there a workflow already planned out, or we have something scheduled, or is there something provided to us that's recommended to follow, or?
No, I mean, I think it's at our discretion.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, there are no prescribed forms for this process. There are only some recommendations. For example, in the summary right at the front of the document, I quote exactly what it says about the public engagement process. It pretty much just says there should be one.
I just wondered,
And
do we ourselves, it sounds like we haven't, but it sounds like maybe we should, and I guess the planner has to do this, you know, set sort of a schedule or timetable that we might, we might follow to move this thing along. Since it sounds like being reasonably urgent about it without being insane about it. You know.
Right. I mean,
Right,
what's the Board of Finances? I mean, Board of Selectmen continues to meet every 2 weeks.
Sure.
Without stop. What would your thoughts be, Erin?
Well, I guess that leads into my question, which is, which entity has the final legal say in what projects go out to the public hearing? Is that the Board of Selectmen makes that final say? Does the Board of Selectmen have conversations with the Board of Finance, and then everyone puts their heads together and then makes recommendations, and then the Board of Selectmen finally like votes on this at some point and says, these are the projects that we have decided we are going to move forward with?
That's the way I would anticipate it being a joint decision between Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen, and then the Board of Selectmen, from what I would understand, would have that final say in what we would present, and then, yes, final say after public input. That's the way I would see it going.
So then should we have, when's the Board of Selectmen meet? On the first and third Tuesday?
Right, we're meeting this coming Tuesday, and then 2 weeks, or well, let me think.
So that's
Yeah, then it would be August 6th, maybe, is it?
August 3rd and then August 17th?
Yes.
Those are the first and third Tuesdays. So is it helpful to you if we have this joint Selectmen Finance meeting certainly before the August 17th Selectmen's meeting, so that you can vote on what you're going to move forward with? Or would you prefer to be able to make that vote on August 3rd?
I think we could potentially do a joint meeting on August 3rd.
Okay, so you make it a Board of Selectmen meeting where the Board of Finance is invited to participate in the discussion.
Correct. And we make a discussion completely around that.
And so then you have a 2-week period after that discussion where the Board of Selectmen comes to its final decision and then votes on it on the 17th, which that would be the final say in terms of what projects, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, goes out to the public hearing.
Yes, I like that idea. I think that works perfectly, Erin.
And Rob Wurge, it looked like you had your hand up.
I do. and I want to preface this by saying I'm all about speed. I like moving quickly. So I don't disagree with the dates. My only question or concern would be, it's 7:15 today. August 3rd is a little over 2 weeks away. Are we comfortable that the process up to this point has yielded the right list of potential projects? I don't know who developed that list. I think Tara put a lot of time into it, but
I did, Rob. Yeah, it was something I took upon myself.
okay.
Yeah.
So my question would be, and I'm very much a process person, I'm a process guy, right? Do we, and I don't want to necessarily slow us down, but I want to make sure that we've kind of wrapped around all the potential projects, and do we need a different process to kind of check that off? Do we appoint a small group? Does this group have a subgroup? And I think this might have been a little bit where Suzanne was going. Maybe a subgroup
Yes.
gets together and creates a much bigger list and then drives that list down. Not to present a big list, but just to make sure that we've kind of looked under every stone, right? We've kind of given all the departments, all the areas of town some thought and consideration. And then we drive it down to another short list and then have the meeting, Aaron, that you're talking about. I hate to see us get too far along and then find out, gee, there's 3 or 4 other areas we didn't contemplate.
And Rob, when you say the meeting that I was talking about, you're talking about the August 3rd meeting?
Correct.
That would be the joint Selectmen Finance meeting.
Right.
Now, if we were to stick to that schedule tonight and sort of adjourn the Board of Finance meeting and say, okay, go, we do have 2.5 weeks before today is Thursday. We've got just shy of 3 weeks would be August 3rd. Do we feel like just shy of 3 weeks is sufficient or insufficient in terms of time available?
I feel like it would be sufficient if we left tonight with a process of what the steps are to identify, call it the new list or the updated list for the August 3rd meeting.
Okay.
If we don't have that process nailed today, then we're going to lose time trying to figure out, do we have all the right projects?
And Steve, I know you had your hand up.
Well, maybe getting a little off topic, but to Suzanne's point, I think maybe when we have the public involvement, there at least be the option for the public to speak out and voice their thoughts, even if it isn't on the 3 or 4, whatever numbers that are developed as the suggested projects. I think it might be appropriate to let the public, have an opportunity to speak up at that, in that whatever form that is.
Good point. It could even be presented as, these are the 3 projects that the Board of Selectmen has decided that we want to recommend to move forward with. We came to these 3 projects after reviewing a list of all these. And we knew that presenting you with a list of 20 projects would probably not be helpful. So we did our due diligence. We met with the Board of Finance. We talked with consultants and professionals and experts. And based on all kinds of criteria, we came up with 3 or 4 or 1 or 2 or whatever. This is what we came up with. And we welcome your input on these, as well as if you have any thoughts on the ones that didn't make the cut, feel free. This is a public hearing. People are welcome to see.
That would be my thought, something along that line.
Rhonda, go ahead.
I just wanted to know, to get to that point, some of the other topics that were discussed regarding the subject is, what makes it most important? Is it most important because it affects more people in town? Is that one of the criteria? Or, are we going to look at some of the projects that may only affect a segment of the people in town, but it's still very important? Like, for example, the daycare, I'm just going to throw that out. There's a different segment of people. It doesn't affect everybody, but it might be a small price to pay to get something nice in town for that particular segment. And then also, like Rob had mentioned earlier as well, looking at projects that aren't going to require ongoing financial support. Is that one of the main criterias that we're going to be looking at, so that when we do narrow down these projects, because somebody's going to be narrowing them down before we get to the next meeting, that what is it that what are the top drivers of what we're looking at, so we can kind of narrow it down a little bit. Is it, the people that use the services, that's going to be, there's 100% people use the ambulance and maybe, 15% use the daycare. You know what I mean? Is that just going to eliminate the daycare? We want to kind of come up with some system as to how we're going to judge these particular programs. And then, you had mentioned there was one on there about the sewer authority. We want to look at projects too. Is it going to be important to look at a project that's also going to save people money, and how many people in town money ongoing? Is that going to be one of the criterias? So it's hard to, I mean, maybe we should have 5 categories that we're looking at, and then we're looking at the same thing in each category of topics. I don't know if that makes sense, but how do we determine, who's determining what's most important here? And how are we determining how it's most important?
And perhaps that's a task for this subgroup that Rob Wurge had suggested. This subgroup could say, okay, let's take a look at this excellent ranking system that Tira has come up with. Fantastic job. Thank you so much. Now let's sort of take a relook at it just to make sure, is this the best ranking system? Could it be narrower? Could there be, instead of 10 criteria, could there be 3 or 4 or 5 to choose from? And do we keep some of the criteria that Tira came up with? Do we add some new ones? Or do we just leave what Tira did? Do we leave it alone? But maybe that's one of the tasks that we assign to this subgroup.
I mean, because we could have some things that are not that costly that could be a nice thing for the town to make it look better, some projects like that. I don't know that everything's in there. Like Suzanne said, there might be other things that are out there that we could do that aren't going to be that costly, but yet they would add value to the town. And then there's other things that are going to really affect people financially and from a safety standpoint that obviously is important too. So I don't know, it just seems like a big project. So,
and Rhonda,
so if you guys want to evaluate other projects for potential applicability, I can forward you the interim final rule. It's 150 pages, but probably only the first 50 to 60 are really relevant. And it's once you get used to the format, it's a pretty quick read. And that can give you a better idea of, how the Fed tried to articulate the project they think would be eligible.
Well, I'm not concerned. I trust what you guys are going to say is eligible, and I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about the ones that are eligible. Who's determining what's most important out of those projects, and what is that criteria of what makes it most important, so that we can judge it. I guess it was kind of like this number system you had there, but I guess that system was a little too complicated for me.
And that's why I was saying maybe that's a task for the subgroup. And Tira, actually, I would take you. I will accept your offer, your kind offer to forward out that full document, because I think that would also be valuable to the work of the subgroup. Rob, it looked like you had a point that you wanted to make, and I just wanted to.
Thank you, Aaron. I would like to look at the document as well, but I don't necessarily think we should send it to folks to then give their input. Give their, I shouldn't say their input. We shouldn't forward it to people to read and then come up with projects. I think as part of the process, the subgroup should come up with those projects.
That's it. I agree. Let's keep it tight.
That's right. And that subgroup could be a nice cross section of people that could represent different aspects of the town and different needs of the town. Because what we don't want it to do is turn into a project that Rob Wurge is really passionate about, or Aaron's passionate about, right? We just want to be as, I think, as objective, and that's where I think where Tira was going with the rating, is just try to be as objective. It's hard, but be as objective as we can.
Objective, thorough, but also timely.
That's right.
And so then perhaps the size of this subgroup should be determined now, so that we don't have a subgroup that's, I'll just pick a number, 20 people. My guess is that might be a little too big. That's just my guess. How big should the subgroup be? And maybe it is 20 people, I don't know, but I'll take another guess. 30 is probably definitely too big. So how big should the subgroup be? So that way we pick a number where we feel like that subgroup wouldn't slow the process down to a point where it actually puts this thing off of schedule, but it adds value. I mean, that's really why we're doing this subgroup, is because we want to add value. We want to make sure that we are including anything that may have been overlooked, and be as thorough as possible while also adhering to a schedule that keeps us moving in a reasonably timely fashion so that we can come to a good decision and not taking too long, and then be not first in line maybe, but certainly be early in line for all the resources that are going to be sought after as municipalities decide what they want to do, and then start reaching out to surveyors and engineers and contractors, all that stuff. We don't want to be at the back of the line. So here we go. So maybe here's a thought. How many people do we think should be on this subgroup?
5. Thank you, Rhonda. 5? What do you wanna talk?
I had my hand up for a question, but I think that's a good number.
Go ahead, Ron.
Oh, gosh, I lost my train of thought. Oh,
Okay.
I guess who's in charge of picking the subgroup? And once
think
the
we
subgroup is picked, are they going to have time to make educated decisions about this stuff by August 5th or the 3rd is my question.
My guess is, here's my guess. My guess is we are loosely, collectively deciding who will be some of the people on this subgroup. And then your second question was what? Who decides what the criteria is?
Now, once the subgroup is picked,
Yep.
are they going to have enough time
Yeah.
to put this all together by the 3rd or the next meeting?
And I suspect as long as they have the resources needed, they probably can move at a pretty brisk pace. If they get that full document from Tira, if they're able to get the resources they need, I imagine they could start having conversations immediately. Now, again, this is just a loosely, collectively, like, let's create a subgroup. It could have 2 members of the Board of Finance, 2 members of the Board of Selectmen. It could have someone from, community ambulance. It could have someone from, I don't know. I want to be careful that we don't put people in the subgroup who represent something that's going to dig in its heels and say, this is what I want. This is because they're personally going to benefit from it. I just want to be careful. It's okay to bring in views from the community that are going to represent certain aspects. I just want to be careful that it doesn't turn into a gathering of parochial views. That's all. So then who decides who's going to be on it? I guess we can decide, and we can leave, if we don't fill all 5 seats, maybe we can leave that open to the 4 people that we decide on tonight. Let them decide who the 5th person is. Go ahead, Suzanne.
Can I just suggest, because when I read this document, and I pretty much read all 150 pages of it, I got a strong sense that it was targeted at the people most affected by the pandemic. And I just wondered if we could maybe include someone from Teague on this committee, because maybe they have had experience with people that have been financially impacted, and it just brings a different perspective. Just my thought.
I like that idea. It's a
I
great
think
idea.
that's a good idea too.
And so maybe it's, 1 selectman, 1 Board of Finance member, 1 Teague person. I see we have a member of the community who just put into the chat that he'd be willing to join. And I know from previous budget cycles, I know him to be a pretty smart guy. So I think there's no shortage of qualified people that we could put on this. And maybe it's 5 people, maybe it's 7. I don't know. Rob, go ahead.
I was going to add that that's a good idea, Suzanne, but with or without adding someone from Teague or someone from any other organization, this subgroup can call on them, can lean on them. You could always bring other experts in or other resources in to say, hey, Ann Miller, what are you hearing? What do you see? I mean, that would be part of this subgroup to be that body of knowledge, right? To pull on those resources. So either way, it could be part of it, or even if it's not, it's a phone call away to get someone's input.
Obviously, folks, I am as available as you need me to be.
Yeah. I think it's probably safe to say that the first selectman probably should be on that subgroup. I'm just going to guess.
I would be happy to. So,
And then from there,
and I can also reach out to Teague if that's where we all decide we want to go. Were we thinking no, or?
For a person, I think it's either way. I think if you reach out to Teague or somebody reaches out to them, whether they're on the board or not, like Rob said, just to get the input, I think it's important to have the input from them.
If you want 2 selectmen, I'm happy to volunteer as well. But if you only want 1,
then it would be constituted as a meeting, no?
No,
Yeah, you would. That would be a meeting amongst the 3 Board of Selectmen.
Well, if there's
You know,
one
if
there,
you'd have your quorum.
so, right, you'd have to post it if you have any discussion.
who was that was speaking?
Oh, Ken,
It's Ken.
Yeah.
I'd also be careful to call it an ad hoc group, guys, not a subcommittee, because you don't want to get stuck in all the formalities of subcommittee.
so what if we had one member of the Board of Selectmen, one member of the Board of Finance? I do not need to be on this. Thank you very much. You know, and then maybe the town planner. I'm just going to throw this out. Anybody can shoot me down. That's okay. We've got at least one member of the community who just said he'd be willing to join. I know he's been involved with Board of Finance budget workshops. He's smart guy. So I'm just throwing out some possibilities here. But we probably should have one member of the Board of Finance. And again, I don't feel the need to be on the subgroup, or the ad hoc group. Sorry, the ad hoc group. I don't feel the need.
I'm gonna pass on that myself.
Aaron, would it make sense to have anyone from the Board of Ed or Melinda herself engaged? I know there's a separate funding for them, but just.
There is a separate and comparable group of funds coming for Ed. So they will have to go through this process themselves.
Understood, but I'm thinking more from the perspective of the children, the perspective of the need. That may be a piece that could be helpful to the group, or not. I don't know. Go, Melinda.
Oh, you're muted.
Error.
Melinda.
So the Board of Ed we already completed this whole process. We've already held 3 public forums. We advertised in the paper. We created a subcommittee, not a subcommittee, but an ad hoc group by identifying key committee members in the district, inviting parents. So we already did all of that. Our grant submitted. So we went through the whole process that you're trying to figure out now. We just identified key committee groups within the district, and then obviously parents. And we went through a very similar process. And what we did was we outlined all of the projects. I think they totaled up about 18 projects. And then we did an activity where those members placed their bets on what was most important to them. And then we culled all that information. And then I was charged to take the budget and then, starting with the most important project, work my way down until I ran out of money. And then I took those projects and brought them to the public forums. And we held 3, one at the Board of Ed meeting and then 2 others. And we advertised in the local paper. And then we came up with our projects. And then from there, I had to do the hard work, as you know, Tara, of actually writing the proposal and the grant and submitting it. But it was a process. It's similar to what you're doing.
So quick question, if I may, Aaron.
Yeah.
One, would it be safe to not assume, but expect that the Melinda of this project would be Amy? She would ultimately have the role that you had, Melinda, with the Board of Ed. And then my question is, having gone through it, is there anything lessons learned, anything you would do differently that you'd advise us to say, well, that sounds great. You know what? You might not want to do that because you have the experience of having done it. What would you do differently if you were going to do it, start over today?
So some of the things we got hung up on were what was going to be the responsibility of the Board of Ed budget or the town's budget versus the opportunity to do these projects that we're never going to be able to do, right? So we had a lot of discussion around what is really appropriate for the Board of Ed / town budget versus what is a project that's really important that we know the people of the town would never be able to fund. And so we were looking for those kind of priorities. We spent a lot of time discussing that back and forth. So one of the things I think would be to keep that in mind when you're moving forward to identifying those projects, because some things are going to be budgeted anyway. And then how do you use this? You know, it's kind of like a windfall. How do you use this money? And then the other piece was avoiding a funding cliff. The Board of Ed was very clear on that. We did put some staff members on, but we know that we can phase them out. And so that was important to us. and what's going to have sustainability and have a long-term impact. Those were things that we talked about.
That's great feedback.
I guess my question for Melinda is, even if you don't join this ad hoc group, you are an outstanding resource because you have just been through this process. If you are available for this group to reach out to for some advice, that would be tremendously helpful.
Anytime, you know that.
Anyone from the Board of Finance who wishes to be on this ad hoc group?
I would rather not. I've got a couple of projects ahead of me in the near future, so I'm kind of tied up, unfortunately.
How about Jim or Rob?
Rob, man.
That'll teach them.
We're not attending, get appointed.
Mm.
I'm feeling stretched out, folks. I mean, if no one else can step up, I'll do it, but I kind of would rather not as well.
And so then,
Aaron, it sounds like it's going to go to you.
I was going to say, let me back up, and maybe, we don't necessarily have to have a member of the Board of Finance on this ad hoc group. Okay. I mean, because this ad hoc group is, all it's going to do is get together and say, are there any projects that we missed? Right? Are there any projects we missed? Let's read the document, and then let's make sure that we haven't missed anything. Because then we can do a little bit of research on it and then add it to the list. And then when we have our August 3rd meeting, we can include it in that discussion. But my sense is August 3rd is when the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen are going to really kind of pull these things apart and really have thoughtful discussion, because we will have had the opportunity to sort of discern on this a little bit more. We might have been able to acquire a little bit more data in our own ways and on our own time, and then come back to that meeting and say, okay, folks, I've done my research and I feel like these 3 projects are the one we should move forward, or these 2 projects, or maybe we could do these 5 and we do these 2 complete, but these 3, Tira said we might be able to qualify for USDA matching funds. What if we can do these 3 partially and get USDA? I think that's where we're going to really sort of like pull this apart and have a meeting where we provide the Board of Selectmen with the info they need to go have their meeting 2 weeks later and say, okay, this is it. So we're going to move forward. So do we need to have a member of the Board of Finance on this ad hoc group? Not necessarily. All they're going to do is just bring more information. That's all.
Mr. Rice.
If Mr. Rice.
Just a comment, Aaron, you have members that on your board that are not there tonight. Maybe one of them would volunteer.
True. And I'd want to reach out to them after the fact. Like I'd want to reach out to them after tonight rather than volunteering them and have them hate me for the rest of their life.
Right, that was my point, was to,
The truth is, Aaron, I was thinking that, anybody could technically send a message to myself or Tira and say, I've given it thought, and did you think about this? Because I've read through the interim rules and I think this might apply. Does it have to be a formal ad hoc committee, or could it just be open to people brainstorming at this point? Everybody that in this meeting could always request from Tira or myself a list, the copy of the interim final rules, and maybe brainstorm before the August 3rd meeting.
Good point.
Could I ask, going through this process, who makes the final decision? I assume it's not the public?
I think it would fall on the board of Selectmen.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
But then
I think that's part of what you're deciding is what the decision-making process itself is. How much of it is group scoring? How much of it is based on public input? In the final instance, I think, yes, the Board of Selectmen has to make the declarative statement. These are the projects, but the nature of the decision-making process is a part of the decision-making process.
And I suspect it goes in terms of the legal authority. It goes Board of Selectmen, town meeting, and possibly referendum if the money being spent is consistent with what we typically, the threshold that we require for a referendum. And that would be the,
Possibly, although it's not taxpayer funds in the same way. So you might not butt up against that, but that's probably a better question for council.
and that's why I say if it reaches that threshold. But my assumption is those would be the steps of the final legal authority. So maybe we don't need to declare a specific ad hoc team with names of people on it. Maybe we just leave it to the people in this meeting to say, look, help us make sure that we haven't overlooked anything. And reach out to Amy.
Because certainly the list that is created on that summary report, it's not extensive and it's not exclusive. So there might be something we've missed. We identified the most urgent needs within the town based on that criteria, but we might have missed something. So certainly open for suggestions
Okay.
prior to August 3rd.
So then we plan to have we plan for the Board of Finance to be invited to the regular Board of Selectmen meeting on August 3rd. That works for me. Just like the Board of Selectmen was invited to tonight's regular meeting of the Board of Finance, as opposed to creating a special agenda with special. If you just invite us to the Board of Selectmen meeting, we can all just show up, and then you can just put it right on the agenda. Board of Finance is invited to, just like on this agenda, it says discussion with the Board of Selectmen. So you can just put it right on your agenda, discussion with the Board of Finance. That way it's all legal. So August 3rd.
Aaron, could I ask one thing? If we're not going to form a small subgroup, which is fine, could Amy or somebody schedule 1 or 2 meetings between now and August 3rd? Because my concern would be that not much will happen between now and August 3rd. If we have a meeting, say, give people a week or 10 days and say, come back with your thoughts and ideas, and then have like a roundtable discussion on, I don't know, making it up July 24th or something. Just to make sure that we have something marked on a calendar and people come and give their input rather than leaving it to just more loose.
So how would that meeting get noticed? And what would we constitute it as? An informal Zoom meeting?
How would you constitute it if we had a ad hoc group?
Oh, well, true.
Town
So you
planner?
just want to set dates to open up for people to maybe show up and talk?
Correct. Like I'd get the document and read it, others would get the document and read it, and then we have kind of like tonight, we're brainstorming here about the group and the process, but we brainstorm about ideas. Someone would record those, and then we would capture it. We'd have a body of work to go into the August 3rd meeting.
Would that be a special Board of Selectmen meeting? I mean, if somebody's going to record, it sounds like it's some kind of official meeting.
Okay. Let me try differently. I don't know if that's necessary, Aaron. Melinda, how did you generate all of your ideas? I imagine you had a long list, and then you pared it down. You culled it down to the few that you went with. How did you get that initial list?
So the initial list was starting to spun out of, and one of the things that they recommended from the Department of Ed is that you had your ESSER 2 monies. And that if you could build on any of the projects you developed for ESSER 2 to extend them with this money, to consider that first. So I had that list already going. And then as I was talking to people about, how are we going to close the learning gap next year, I had a list of things that people had talked to me about. So then I took that list, similar to what Amy's doing right now. And I took that list in front of the core group, which is what I believe she's doing today, and the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen, and saying, these are the projects. And then we went through a little activity where we gave everybody $1 and said, okay, you have $1 to spend it on, I think I had 18 projects. And then folks put their bets down, and then we culled all that information. We had discussion, but we culled all that information. And then there were priority projects that naturally flowed out of that. And then they charged me to take the budget that we had, which was like a little bit over $1 million, and then start with the item that got the most interest and go down. And then I was able to cull it down to a smaller list. So maybe it was about 7 projects. And then those projects went out to the community. And in my body of the grant, there was one question that they asked, what was the process for your community outreach? And then what did you do with the feedback from the community? And how did that shape your final proposal? And we did get a parent who was very vocal about us implementing a district-wide tutoring program because she couldn't afford tutoring for her child, but she knows her child's fallen behind. And would there be something available next year for after-school tutoring that could be funded? So we took that suggestion and we put it in the body of the grant, and we made that one of the proposals. So they did ask specifically, what did you get from the community outreach and how did that shape your proposal? That's how we culled it down. And then when we ran out of money, Rob, that's where we drew the line.
But that describes a process that you went through, and then you balance that process against the criteria and some of the requirements. I guess my question would be to Amy and Tira, if we felt like we've followed a solid process, then maybe we're all set, we're okay.
Yeah, I'd suggest to give the FOIA office a call, just to make sure you're not missing dotting any I's here, crossing any T's.
Good point.
It's a quick call, takes a couple minutes. They'll give you advice to make sure that the meetings you have are legal, because it sounds like if you don't do it correctly, you could be in trouble down the road.
Excellent
So I would
advice.
suggest doing that.
Excellent advice. And Rhonda, hold on, I'll call you in just a second. I noticed that the second Tuesday of July, the third Tuesday of July is the 20th, right? So there's a regular Board of Selectmen meeting coming up next week on Tuesday. So perhaps you could add some discussion about this to your agenda. And now you've already got FOIA covered. And anyone between now and next Tuesday at whatever the Selectmen meeting is, if they have an idea that they want to share, they can go ahead and officially share it at that meeting. Does that sound fair?
That's a good idea.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
I was just going to say, when at the beginning of the process, when Melinda was saying, they, and then we've all put $1 in, and were the people that you were talking about, you were doing that exercise with the Board of Ed, specifically at a Board of Ed meeting, or who were you doing that with?
Oh,
I can't hear you.
Muted.
It's a grant application in the end. So we did it with our professional development committee, our curriculum council, our portrait of a graduate committee, and then we invited parents into that conversation.
So you had a committee put together then. So maybe,
We had-
maybe we
yes.
do need a committee then, is what I'm suggesting, is what I'm seeing here. So she did have a committee put together of different people, and then brought all those projects in there to see how people felt about those specific projects that were already put together based on maybe what Tara's research was, on our platform, if you will. And then bounced all that stuff. So it was really a big, long list that came in. And then, like the town planner didn't say, okay, we didn't put this on the list because we didn't think it was important. Everything was on the list. Everything went into that committee. And then the committee trimmed the list down. It wasn't pre-trimmed before it went to the committee. I think that we should do it that way. My personal opinion.
I know it seems like the practical challenge for us is staffing that committee, this ad hoc group, because that was about 20, 25 minutes ago. I think that was the wall that we started bumping up against, was people saying, not it, not it, not it. And so you go, okay, maybe this process is working okay. Just, go to the Board of Selectmen meeting. If you have anything more to add, let the first selectman know.
Because I feel, Aaron, if I can just interrupt, I'm sorry. I feel like the breadth of what the school could possibly do is so much bigger than what the town would be eligible to do. The programs you could think of running in a school with a windfall of cash would be so much more extensive, and there's so many variables and so many avenues versus the town. Honestly, if you look through the criteria, it's very limited.
So you think you've got a full list then, is what you're
I
getting at?
feel like I've got a relatively full list. There are a couple things that people have pointed out to me that are worth considering. But again,
Okay with
I'd
that.
rather them share their thoughts.
All right,
And they can do that at the next Board of Selectmen meeting.
Right. Right.
Terrific.
I should also point out, guys, that the process does sound like it was different for,
We lost you.
Sounded like she was about to say, it sounds like I shouldn't try to interpret what she meant. Oh, well. All right, so it sounds like we're okay with, if people want to add something to the list, they make that known at the Board of Selectmen meeting next week on Tuesday. And then the Board of Selectmen will have the opportunity to spend another 2 weeks and 2 days discerning over every possible use of the money that has been presented by the community, and then come in with to the August 3rd Selectmen meeting, where the Board of Finance members will be there and say, okay, we got a couple more projects, and we're able to do a little research on them so that we could get you a narrative with, you know, the little ranking system that we had for all the other ones. And so here it all is. And then let's just really start pulling this apart, and then coming together with some recommendations. And then the Board of Selectmen has 2 more weeks to discern and really decide what they think is the best option to go with. What's going to be presented to the community. Go ahead, Rhonda.
I was just going to ask if Dottie could send us the link for that meeting, and that is somebody going to reach out to the other 2 board members to let them know that they may want to attend this meeting as well.
Meeting August 3rd?
Yes.
Rhonda, if you go to the town website and go to meetings and agendas, it should be.
I know, it's just easier to get it. I got so much going on that, you know, I appreciate it, Dottie.
Sure.
I think it's important to include the Board of Finance, since they'll be listed on the agenda. I think it'll be no problem for Dottie to remember to send it off. Or no, actually it's Kelly that sends it off. So nope, it'll be Marie that sends it off. Sorry. We'll get it over to you though. I'll make note of it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on on item 9B of the agenda, which is discussion with Board of Selectmen, American Rescue Plan funds, guidelines, and potential uses? Any other discussion on that particular item of the agenda? All right, hearing none. Board of Finance member comments. Any Board of Finance member comments at this time?
Just have a quick one. I think this has come up before. We do need to put our agenda on the town website. I don't think it was up there of this meeting. That happened once before, and I think we were required to do that. And even if it's not required, it's a good thing to do. So.
Okay. Thank you. Good point. Any other Board of Finance member comments? Any other Board of Finance member comments? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion. Steve's got the second. All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? This carries 4-0. Meeting is now adjourned. It's 9:01 p.m. Thank you, everyone. We'll see some of you next week on Tuesday.